All right, we are headed up to Chelsea today, and it's always a little risky to come to Chelsea this time of year just because it is right on the water. It's right on the Hudson River, so you definitely get those really chilly winter breezes right off of it. So we're super bundled up, but I'm really excited to see some shows today. And the first exhibit is at Kasmin Gallery, and honestly, the real reason I was excited to see this show was to see this one sculpture in particular by Vanessa German. And there it is in blue. Vanessa's known for creating these really intricate mixed media sculptures that combined doll parts, household objects, beads, and shells. And honestly, I could just look at these for hours. The title of this exhibit is Between the Earth and Sky, and it's a group show featuring 20 sculptures that span from as early as 900 AD all the way up until 2019. And there's so many famous artists that have worked in sculpture that are captured in this show, such as Tom Sachs, Robert Indiana, Ugo Rondine. This one in front of us is by Rachel Harrison. Love that telephone just sticking out there on the top. But here in the back is another favorite of mine from the show. This is by an artist, Diana AL-HADID, and she creates these sculptures that have Baroque and figurative elements. They really live in this sort of in-between state between construction and deconstruction, and I love how she emphasizes features that are more particular to painting than, say, sculpture. And I think she just captures it so beautifully, and the details here just really draw me into her works. Next, we're walking a couple blocks down to Lehmann Maupin Gallery to see a pretty new exhibit. It is a series of paintings by the artist Angel Otero, and this exhibit is titled The Fortune of Having Been There. And Otero has a really interesting technique that he employs. He creates what are called these paint skins, and he does this by painting on large sheets of glass, and then he scrapes the partially dried oil paint from the surface and then collages them together on canvas to create a more abstract work in the same way that you would take scraps of newspaper or pictures traditionally when you're collaging. He does that with paint. And in this exhibit, Otero mixes this technique with traditional paint on canvas to create works that are less abstract and more recognizable as objects that we know. Like, for example, here's a chandelier and a bed. And he focuses on particularly domestic interiors and still lives and landscapes. And the images that Otero depicts are from his childhood, such as his grandmother's home in Puerto Rico, as well as references from art history, such as Joan Mitchell's vibrant palette to George Braque's use of space. Overall, Otero is exploring my personal favorite space, which is the space between representation and abstraction. And I think the reason I love when artists do this so much is that it lets the viewer be a part of the work, to explore our own relationship to history and memory and the depths of the subconscious. really love this exhibit. I honestly love this direction that Otero is moving in. I don't know if it's permanent, but I think compared to his strictly abstract works, I personally enjoy a mix of the more recognizable objects, for sure. Now we're heading over to an exhibit by Heikes at Marianne Boesky Gallery. And Heikes also employs a really interesting painting technique. And I love starting zoomed in on this because I'd love to hear what you guys think. But I honestly at first thought that these were photographs. I thought that it looked like photographs where you have multiple subjects sort of layered at various levels of exposure. But he's actually using oil paint on canvas to combine two different subject matters, mostly around the theme of nature and the universe. And he complements these paintings with these, I think they look organic, but they could also be possibly man-made sort of rocks or meteorites almost. Once again, making us question, is this from space? Is this from nature? It's really hard to tell. But in general, this exhibit, he's making a commentary on culture with these paintings in this way that he's quoted saying, "The sheer vastness of a wide open space is imbued with feelings of emptiness. Only in a cave or canyon can the gesture of a scream be returned. Through the last 4 years of alienation and the recent time collectively spent in isolation, I began to see the idea that in retreating to an imagined vastness, such as through a painting of the sky, the works became representations that keep us grounded and avoid the total void of the sublime." So yeah, that's intense. But in general, I think what he's saying is that as humans, we don't have control. Control is in the universe, it's in nature. And if we just accept that, then that's where we'll find peace. Here we are at 303 Gallery, and this is a group show. So you may have noticed there's been quite a few group shows. This is actually pretty common for this time of year. Most galleries have group shows in the summertime as well as the wintertime in the months of January and February, just because it gives them a little bit of a break in their program to prepare for some of the shows that are happening in May. Usually we have Frieze New York in May, a major art fair where everyone comes in, so a lot of galleries want to put their best foot forward. It also just helps them offload a little bit of their inventory. Here we have a great work by Peter Hans Feldman, and he's known for creating these sort of old world, almost Dutch master portraits, but then emphasizing a piece of it to make it more modern. So for example, he'll add like a red clown nose to a portrait of siblings or of young children, just to add a little bit of humor and modernism. And on the left here, this panda painting, this is a work by Rob Pruitt. And Rob Pruitt was actually represented by Gavin Brown's Enterprise. But when that gallery closed, oh my gosh, almost a year ago now, back last September 2020, he moved over to 303 and he's now represented by 303 Gallery. Another work I love in the show is this purple work here by the artist Kasmin, and she's an artist from Mozambique, and she lives between New York and LA right now, but she creates these paintings of everyday life or even life-changing events, but just really what's happening on a day-to-day basis. I think the biggest positive of group shows is that it does allow you to discover new artists, find artists that you may not have heard of before, may not have seen before, and I think that's always a gift. Now we're heading down to the Meatpacking district, which is right on the border of Chelsea, on our way to West Village. And this is Chelsea Market. They've set up these cute little booths for outdoor dining. We're actually going to have a quick lunch and celebrate Chinese New Year. But stick with me. Shortly after, we are going to go down to White Columns Gallery, which is a gallery I've never actually been to before, but I've always wanted to, so I'm super excited. This is White Columns Gallery, and White Columns is a nonprofit gallery space, and it has two different sections. This is the West Gallery, and this is an artist that served in the army in the 70s and 80s, and after experiencing PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, he started drawing, and he was a part of New York's HAI, or the Healing Arts Initiative. And this was a forward-thinking nonprofit organization that was founded with the mission to inspire healing, growth, and learning through engagement in the arts for the culturally underserved. And he passed away in 2013. And in the East Gallery, we have a debut show by Jeffrey Meris. And Jeffrey created these works as a part of his artist in residency at Next Haven. And Next Haven is a new national arts model that empowers emerging artists and creators of color through education and access. And it might sound familiar because one of the co-founders is Titus Kaphar, who just had an incredible exhibit at Gagosian. I also visited that one, so I will share a link to that above if you want to check that out. And honestly, this exhibit it's super powerful. It features these, I wouldn't even call them paintings, they're almost sculptures, and these kinetic sculptures. And the kinetic sculptures are centered around trauma and a sense of racially based violence. And the kinetic sculptures feature casts, like you can see here, of the artist's feet as well as the artist's head in another sculpture. And in these works, like fragments of the artist's body are being subjected to an enacted violence and trauma, where the viewer is implicated in the process of the artist's erasure. Really, really powerful. And so while the kinetic works really centered around trauma and violence, the paintings behind it display rituals of care and healing and cleansing these wounds. And the paintings were created by an assembly of rust-stained rags that the artist used previously to clean his kinetic sculptures. And overall, Meris's work makes a very powerful statement about identity, about race, class, gender, and sexuality. And I'm very excited to see how his career develops over time, because for a debut show, I think he's coming right out of the gate with very strong, very clear messaging, and this is just a very well executed show. As you can see, it's dark outside, it's cold, I'm ready to go home, get warm. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. As always, please let me know which was your favorite. It's always super interesting to hear which exhibits, which artists you like the best. And if you're not sure, I know we saw a lot of group shows today. If you saw an artwork that wasn't called out and you're wondering who the artist is, just let me know. I'll try to answer the best I can in the description below. And yeah, if you liked this and you like this kind of content, think about subscribing. It really helps me out, shows me that you like this kind of content, that you support the channel. And I'll see you on Tuesday. Bye.